Jason Thomas, and today I'd like to talk to you about minimum wage. Webster's dictionary defines minimum wage as the lowest wage paid or permitted to be paid specifically, a wage fixed by legal authority or by contract as the least that may be paid either to an employed persons generally or to a particular category of employed persons. When I was 16 years old, I started out working at Porter's IGA. I made $5.15 an hour. 10 years later, here we are, it's still minimum wages of $5.15 an hour. They did put a bill into the House to try to pass it, but it has not passed yet. It's still being determined by the Senate to have an increase of $2.10, which would make it $7.25 an hour. That would help low-income workers exponentially, and an increase in the minimum wage would benefit plenty of workers. There are about 30,000 workers that are in poverty that are working at $5.15 an hour. First, an increase would help the average worker. That basically an average worker brings home about half or more of the salary of an income of a family. So usually it's 2.5 is about an average family. So just imagine going to work and trying to support a family on $5.15 an hour, which makes about 10.5 thousand a year. That's what basically you'd be making every year, bringing home to try to support 2 other people in your family, including yourself, which would be terrible. I started working at Porter's IGA, like I said before, and it was very difficult for me to even get things that I wanted at that time, and I couldn't imagine still trying to do so. Adults, single parents, and minorities and women would benefit the most by this because they struggle trying to get jobs, and when they do get jobs, they start out at minimum wage, which is terrible. Second, an increase in the minimum wage would help fight poverty. Currently at $5.15 an hour, a full-time worker would bring home $206 a week. I make probably 3 or 4 times more than that, and I'm still finding it hard to get by. I mean, it's still pretty hard to get by working at that much. With family, I just have my wife, and I'm trying to help support my wife, and she has a job, and we're still trying to pay for our house, which I couldn't imagine being at $5.15 an hour and trying to do that. It would be impossible. A low minimum wage is essentially telling employers that their employees are basically nothing, that they can work for free, because what's the point of trying to work your hardest to not even get by? Some people just give up and they get on different kind of programs to help pay them money for food. It is important to realize that a job should keep someone out of poverty rather than keeping you in it. The EITC, which is the Earned Income Tax Credit, combining that with minimum wage, it helps to reduce poverty but is not a replacement for poverty. A third, an increase in the minimum wage would help the economy. The cost of living has risen 26%. The cost of living has increased over the years, yet workers are not being compensated at the same rate, which makes living in the economy much more difficult than it used to be. Inflation value is 30% lower in 2006 than it was in 1979. The last increase eroded. $5.15 today is equivalent to $3.95 in 1995, which is lower than $4.25 minimum wage level before the increase in 1997. There is no evidence of job loss since they haven't increased it, but it's really hard to find jobs. I mean, I've struggled to find jobs when I moved to Texas, and it's still pretty difficult finding jobs that are equivalent to what you want in pay. Our economy has a difficult time growing in a positive direction without the increase of minimum wage. This puts a cap on low wages and opportunity out in the workforce. We found basically unemployment rates are a lot higher now because minimum wage people can't find jobs. It's very hard. Even when they do find jobs, minimum wage can't support their family. So you see, if you ever notice, a lot of people are having 3 or 4 jobs to help support their family, and it's terrible to have to work 3 jobs. You don't get any rest, and it kills you, and you just break down. In conclusion, there needs to be increase in minimum wage. The increase would directly benefit low-income workers and their families and indirectly benefit the rest of society and our economy. We should be fighting poverty by raising the minimum wage, which would help low-income workers and their families get out of the poverty bracket. This would give families an opportunity for a new start. Think about something for a second. If you're working a minimum wage job and still scrapping by, what is the point in working at all? The harsh reality of minimum wage is that working people have jobs to keep themselves out of the poverty rather than in it. Do your part to participate in public discussion and votes to raise the state and federal minimum wage. This will benefit all of us by rejuvenating our economy and its workers. Thank you very much.